forecaster Gerald Celente. He accurately predicted the fall of the Soviet Union, the crash of '87, and the housing collapse. He is now predicting what he calls the greatest depression. We all know the Great Depression was bad. You're saying this is going to be worse.
Much worse, much more violent.
Violent? So
much more violent.
Street crime?
Street crime.
Civil unrest?
Civil unrest. My saying is, when people lose everything and they have nothing left to lose, they lose it.
The melodic tune of St. James Infirmary, usually played during a funeral march, was a soundtrack to the 140 names of people, young and old, lost to violence in New Orleans this year alone.
A high likelihood of being murdered on the streets of New Orleans than an American soldier being killed in Afghanistan.
It's the reason 2,000 people gathered at UNO Lakefront Arena Saturday for the Saving Our Sons Crime Action Summit, aimed at reducing the murder rate in New Orleans.
Fighting crime is top priority. The NOPD is feeling the effects of the other big city problem, a nearly $10 million hole in this year's budget.
A homicide detective from Down Under has come all the way to New Orleans to learn how investigators with the NOPD handle their casework. WGNO's Sandra Gonzalez has more.
Sergeant Wayne Walsh is a Victoria police detective here from Melbourne, Australia, that country's second most populated city.
We're usually between 70 or 80 homicides a year in Melbourne. We have a population of 3.5 million people in the city area, so our homicide rate's very low.
He traveled to the United States to learn from police departments that deal with homicide on a regular basis.
Just in the past 2 months, Jefferson Parish has seen the number of murders more than double. WGNO's Glenn Boyd tells us murders in JP so far are running ahead of last year's murder rate.
This time 1 year ago, only 33 murders had been committed in Jefferson Parish. The numbers are up this year. So far, 41 reported homicides, a 24% increase.
You never know when the crimes of passion may come up, relational murders.
In the month of July, JP recorded 5 homicides. In August, the number more than doubles. 12 murders.
7-year-old Jory Leeret was a special needs child confined to a wheelchair. Tonight, his horrific murder sent shockwaves through his quiet neighborhood.
It's really crazy. You don't expect something like this to happen so close to your house, to your home, but I guess anything can happen nowadays.
When you have a 7-year-old child, an innocent child that's killed, that had no way to protect himself, that's tragic in itself. It's a shock to this community.
Police have charged 30-year-old Jeremiah Wright with first-degree murder in Leeret's death. They say Wright confessed to killing his live-in girlfriend's son, but he had little to say when our cameras were rolling.
Why did you do it?
Is there anything you want to say? Any words for your girlfriend? Police say Wright decapitated Leeret and dismembered his body over his home's kitchen sink. Police say a passerby saw Leeret's head on the sidewalk outside the family's home this afternoon. It was near a garbage bag with the child's dismembered body. Police arrived a minute later.
New Orleans police say Armstead shot Officer Terrence Hilliard Tuesday night after a traffic stop in Algiers. But Armstead's no stranger to the criminal system. He was on probation for possession with the intent to distribute cocaine. In the past, he's been arrested for second-degree battery, possession of a stolen vehicle, and a slew of drug charges. And now he's behind bars for shooting a cop.
3 people end up in the hospital after a gunman charges through an East Jefferson playground, firing more than a dozen shots. It happened just before 2 this afternoon at the Jesse Owens Playground. That's near Newton Street and Richard Avenue. Monica Hernandez joins us from the scene. And Monica, all of the victims are teenagers?
That's right. All the victims are in their teens. 2 of them are fighting for their lives in the hospital right now in critical condition. You can see the park is empty now, but just before 2 o'clock today, it became a crime scene. You can see the marks on the ground from authorities where there were spent shell casings. Some neighbors tell us they heard over a dozen shots fired. Now, the gunman hit 3 teens. A 16-year-old girl was shot multiple times in the abdomen, and a 19-year-old girl was struck in the shoulder. Both were rushed to the hospital in critical condition. A 19-year-old male was also shot multiple times. His injuries are not considered life-threatening. A red car caught fire around the same time, but deputies are not sure if that's related. Neighbors say the park was filled with children at the time. One neighbor told me he actually saw the gunman holding an assault rifle at the edge of the park and unloading it into the playground area. Now, some people went over to help the 16-year-old who was laying on the ground.
So when I pulled up, that little guy right there at the gate had like a rifle in his hand, shooting over towards into the park. I went into the house. About 5 minutes I came back. I walked over. I seen the little girl laying in the park. I tried to help her. I just told her she'd be all right. Hold her hand, talk to her, whatever. Try to keep her alive.
4 more people were also sent to the hospital after a quadruple shooting in New Orleans. It happened just after 7:30 last night in the 1800 block of North Rendon. Police say they were part of a group of people standing outside of a home when a man walked up and opened fire. All 4 victims were hit in the leg, but one man was also struck in the stomach and is listed in critical condition. Police are still searching for the gunman.
Tonight, friends are remembering a man killed outside of his job in the Bywater. 26-year-old Michael Marshall was sitting in his SUV when the shooting happened. It all happened in the 1700 block of Poland Avenue just before 8 this morning. Let's go now to WDSU reporter Gina Swanson, who's in our studios with the very latest. Hi, Gina.
Camille, police say Michael Marshall had been working at the scrap yard for just about 2 years. He arrived at work early this morning and was gunned down in the parking lot. All of this happened, as you mentioned, just about 8 o'clock this morning. Police recovered more than a dozen shell casings from the scene. Investigators say more than 1 gun was used in the incident, and there may be more than 1 person involved in the shooting. Family and friends say Marshall didn't have any enemies, and they're still trying to wrap their heads around everything.
6 hours after an early morning homicide in New Orleans, police have no suspects in custody. WGNO News reporter Christian Jennings has more on the double shooting this morning from the St. Bernard area.
It was in this parking lot in this very spot where a man and woman were sitting in their vehicle this morning when they were shot. The man died, the woman was taken to the hospital, and people around here believe that man was targeted.
It's very scary.
People living at Spencer's Place Apartments on Davie Street woke up to gunshots.
About 15, 20.
Police say around 4:15, 45-year-old Kim Watson and her friend, a 59-year-old man, were interrupted by a barrage of gunfire.
I wish both of them would have been okay.
The man was sitting in the driver's seat. He was killed, shot multiple times. Watson survived. Her sisters say she was taken to the hospital, shot in the shoulder and just grazed by a bullet across her back.
It's scary when you have kids in the house.
Police tell us the 59-year-old man was previously arrested for 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder, and armed robbery. They also found a gun inside his vehicle.
Shocking, because it was good people. He was a good person.
People got to be careful what they're doing and who they're surrounding and everything. People got to stop.
Vandalized twice in 1 week by somebody stealing copper from its AC units. Meg Gatto tonight tells us that St. Philip's is one of many places that copper thieves are targeting.
Father Steve thinks the rise in thefts in the city has to do with the economy.
I feel sad for the people who are doing this, because we would help anybody who came here looking for assistance.
New Orleans police are investigating the latest in a string of home invasions. It happened before 2:30 this morning in a quiet Lakeview neighborhood. Monica Hernandez talks with the homeowner about the terrifying events.
It looks like he just got in, walked in the bedroom, he turned the light on and pointed the gun at her.
That's what happened to Kevin Ruger's tenant early this morning inside the apartment attached to his Lakeview home.
She was terrified. She's a 25-year-old little petite girl. I mean, she's from Lafayette.
Ruger says the masked gunman took $20 from his tenant, then asked if she had any more.
Ruger says the man then forced the girl to drive to this nearby bank, go to the ATM, and take out $400, and then drive back to the house.
When they drove back, he forced her at gunpoint up to my front door, and he said knock on the door, so she knocked because he wanted to get in my house, I guess. And but for some reason we didn't hear it.
Then Ruger says the man took the girl back to her apartment and left. She called 911, waited some time for an answer, and when police came, Ruger was shocked at what happened next.
For some reason, they thought he might be in my house, so they kicked the back door in. My alarm goes off. That's when I woke up, came running downstairs, and I see two police officers with guns drawn in my den.
Stay alert.
Friday, a group of kids got robbed and carjacked at gunpoint after a football game.
New Orleans police are looking for a man who has been impersonating a utilities worker to get inside homes. Once he gets inside, he takes cash and other valuables, and police say he's targeting senior citizens.
The third armed robbery in 24 hours, but this time police have suspects in custody after a chase through the Garden District and other spots. WGNO News reporter Dave Jordan has this exclusive story.
This odd armed robbery happened around 7 o'clock tonight when a man checking on a business near Terpsichore and Prytania was approached by a man on a bike wielding a gun and demanding his keys. The robber hopped into the vehicle of a co-conspirator and fled the scene, leaving his bike behind. About an hour later, police spotted the car and a chase ensued, which later resulted in the arrest of one of the men near the intersection of LaSalle and Jackson. That's when police noticed their suspect was wearing an ankle monitor. The second suspect was arrested at Simon Bolivar Avenue and Phillip Street. Right now, it's not known if this robbery is connected to similar crimes in our area. Authorities are still investigating.
The NOPD is on the hunt tonight for 39-year-old Leonardo Cushenberry. They say Cushenberry forced his way into a home around 11:30 last night in the 9200 block of Dixon Street, hit a resident and took his money. Cushenberry faces armed robbery, second-degree battery, and home invasion charges. If you know where he is or have any info on any of the crimes we're reporting today, call Crime Stoppers at 822-1111. Cops also say Jacob Lee is a candy store crook with a sweet tooth for cash after a WGNO report earlier this week which showed this video you're about to see of an armed robber at the candy store on Bourbon Street. Somebody goes into the store and cops identified 31-year-old Lee as the guy seen in the video. Somebody saw this report and called cops. Lee is wanted for sticking up the place September 9th and running off with money. Anybody with info, once again, urged to call Crime Stoppers, 822-1111.
Frenchmen and the Marigny are known for good times, good spirits, and live entertainment, none of which are unique to the neighboring French Quarter. Both areas fall under the umbrella of Party Central, and given the past 72 hours, the 8th District as a whole is fast becoming Crime Central.
Robberies sometimes spike, and that's unfortunately what happened this weekend.
Detective Sergeant Nick Gernon says 6 8th District detectives were busy working 9 robberies Monday when a popular market on Frenchman Street was held up.
I just know that these things happen, and it was just unfortunate it happened to me.
This store clerk doesn't want to be identified but shares his frightening ordeal.
He pulled out the gun, he pointed it at me, and he said, give me the money out of the register. After that, I gave him the money out the register, I put it on the counter.
That's a shame, honestly. They come here every morning and make an honest living, and for somebody to take that away, it's horrible.
All he wanted to do was enjoy a big LSU win, but the party was over when he realized thieves ripped off a shotgun, TVs, and more. WGNO News anchor Sheldon Fox explains.
Tiger on top.
Alex Gerhold knows just how to throw a football party.
Football paraphernalia in here and all kind of football stuff all over the wall. I got,
From the comfort of his decked-out barroom. But after his first major party of the year, the night LSU thumped Oregon on WGNO, his New Orleans East home was violated. Burglars broke in as Gerhold, a former NOPD cop, his daughters, and their guests slept.
I don't know if he's brave or stupid. I think he's stupid.
The crooks started in his football sanctuary, ripping off a TV he's since replaced. Then they stole tools from the garage before heading to the driveway, where the tools were then used to steal a mounted 12-gauge shotgun from inside his Crown Victoria.
Tried to rip it out, but it wouldn't come out.
The stealing didn't stop there. 2 TVs and a GPS were lifted from this mobile home.
Our phone's been ringing off the hook lately with folks wanting to have the systems monitored or reactivated. We have a lot of folks who need their systems repaired that haven't been taken care of.
And police say it's a good idea.
We believe that there are more people. I can't tell the public enough to maintain a vigilant attitude.
You know, I heard what Doug had to say. It's more about, reining in lending.
or this election. I mean, you know, who are they going to vote for? You know, the Bananos or the Gambinos? There's not going to be any real change in this country.
Well, to an extent, but remember, you know, the game is rigged and they're running the game. I mean, to me, the only outside shot is a Ron Paul.